Hello friends, today we'll be discussing about telephone counseling. I'm Dr. Suresh Badadmat, Professor of Psychiatry working at NIMANS, Bangalore. In this video, I'll be introducing about telephone counseling, what are the advantage, disadvantage, phases of telephone counseling and concluding it. Telephone counseling. Telephone counseling is a kind of brief psychotherapy or a counseling that is performed over a telephone rather than in a therapist office or maybe in-person counseling. This type of counseling can range from crisis counseling to hotline acute problem solving, maybe suicide prevention counseling, or else even marital counseling. So, this telephone counseling can be utilized for various purposes. In this, the chief important point is it is provided via using technology such as telephone, maybe computer and internet. So, providing counseling using technology is considered as telecounseling. Telecounseling is one form of telehealth services that is related to remote counseling services. Other terms are also being used, such as e-psychology, e-counseling, web counseling, telephone counseling, online counseling. All these terms reflects the nature of remote psychological services, counseling services, family counseling services, or else child counseling services. The basic ingredient is providing services through telephone. It started somewhere in 1960. It started with the hotlines to prevent suicide. This emerged initially in Europe, United States of America, and Australia. These telecounseling services became specialized over a period of time. What do you mean by this specialization? Initially, it started with suicide. Then, they started providing services to the war veterans, women, children, disaster survivors. So, it specialized to the group of population who are in need of services. Telephone counseling in India, there are various government initiatives. One of the best I can talk about is National Tobacco Quitline Services. Here, in this tobacco quit services, any person can call and take counseling with regard to how to quit tobacco. Further, during COVID, NIMANS Bangalore started psychosocial support and mental health services. In simple word, it is called as psychosocial helpline. This COVID related helpline, which started, provided many counseling services over the telephone. Further, national helpline set up by Ministry of Social Justice called as Kiran, child helpline, women helpline, senior citizens helpline. So these are all government initiatives which provide counseling services, information providing, not only that, even legal help. There are various telephone based counseling services initiated by non governmental agencies. One of the landmark telephone based suicide prevention Sneha Foundation from Chennai is very notable work they have done. Dr. Vijayalakshmi played a crucial role in starting this Sneha Foundation and also prevention of suicide helpline. Further, Mumbai based ASRA, again HelpAge helpline. So there are various people running telephone counseling to provide services. Let's look at the advantages of telecounseling. First and the foremost is accessible. Any person from a remote village who has access to telephone can avail these services. They are affordable. Most of the time, these NGO based or else even governmental organization based are free. That is toll free number. That means the caller need not pay. Acceptable. The public, most of them find it very acceptable because there is anonymity and the services can be availed anytime around the clock, 24 bar 7, anywhere, from any place. And being anonymous, I need not tell who I am, and I can avail these services. Here, the whole advantage revolves around privacy and confidentiality and convenience. The confidentiality plays a crucial role, especially in mental health services. And the whole telephone counseling revolves around client comfort and centered. Here, looks doesn't matter. Many persons with mental illness, family members of persons with mental illness are worried about stigma and discrimination. Many a time they are worried we are from a low socioeconomic status. How can I avail these services? Such kind of thinking comes in the barrier of help seeking. Telephone counseling will break this barrier. Further, if you know there are advantages, but at the same time there are disadvantages. There may be network issues. Many a time, the counselor or the psychotherapist sitting on the other side of the telephone will not be able to understand the facial gestures, body language, non-verbal communication. They will not be able to read that. Many a time, same counselor may not be available for the second session. Here, it is poor follow-up. That means the caller may call only once. So most of the calls will be considered as one of the session. They are in telephone, it is a brief session. You may get hardly time to speak around 1 minute to 20 minutes. Many a time, it may be even 30 seconds. Many a time, the counselors will feel there is no closure for their clients. Basically, the counselor is not happy. He is not happy that I'm not able to understand what happened to this client. And many a time, the distraction because of the network issues, or else the person who is receiving the call may be in the middle of a theater or at home. So the distraction and the empathizing skills will be very limited, especially in telephone. Many a time, the phone may not be picked up at all. And either of the caller, that means the caller can suddenly put the phone down, or else even the counselor can put it down. And other resources need to be managed. Let's discuss about telephone counseling phases. There are five important telephone counseling phases. You need to understand these five important counseling phases so that when you travel through this along with the client, you'll be able to understand where the counseling is progressing. First one is preparation phase. Second one is introduction phase, middle phase, termination phase, documenting, and closing the session. So let's discuss each one of these phase. Preparation phase. Here, the counselor should check the network, whether the network is working properly or not, headset and mic, whether the signals are being transmitted to the computer or not. Wearing good clothes. That means you need to be in a professional attire. Although it looks silly, if I'm doing a telephone counseling, why should I wear a formal clothes? Let's understand this very closely. Please remember, when you wear good clothes, you feel good. That means when you go to a work and you behave professionally, your voice also becomes professional. Depending upon your clothes you wear, your mood and your voice will show the cheerfulness. Hence, being professional, wearing professional attire means a lot in telephone counseling. Although the client may not be able to see you, but please be professional. It is not just a telephone counseling. You are dealing with somebody's life, a person who is seeking help. Hence, be professional. Before you start the telecounseling, check your instruments once more. Switch off your mobile phone, that is, which you're not using it for telephone counseling. Your personal mobile number should be kept off because during telephone counseling, your personal mobile number should not ring. because this will lead to the breakup of rapport. That means rapport cannot be built at all. Hence, the only means of contact between the client and the counselor is the telephone. So, avoid as much as possible distraction. Be in the present moment. What do you mean by be in the present moment? When you come to the telecounseling services, when you start providing services, switch off yourself from all daily hassles from your family, from your workplace, or else maybe in your relationship issues. You need to give full undivided attention to the client. Close all browsing windows when you're talking to the client. If you have a laptop or even a mobile phone is there, don't distract yourself. You are humiliating a client who is seeking help. Don't do that. Main reason is you have to give undivided attention. Turn off all your distraction. Log in. And please remember, do not take calls while traveling. Although nowadays IVRS can transfer the call directly to the counselor who is arriving to the counseling center by bike or by car. Although it seems that what is the problem in that? It is not professional. Let's be very clear. You don't do therapy in a car. You don't do psychotherapy while you're traveling. Hence, as much as possible, be professional and try to use those techniques which you do is in person. Let's move to the second one, introduction phase. This is the time when the counselor will speak to the client. As soon as the phone rings, the counselor should smile. What is the use of smile? The client doesn't speak. But if you smile, your voice cheers up. So as soon as the phone rings, the counselor should smile and greet the caller, saying, "Thank you for calling Telemanas. I am Mr. So and so or Miss So and so. How can I help you? How can I assist you?" That means the way you start will dictate how the counseling will go. The good start is half begun. There are various studies have clearly said that the first 30 seconds to 1 minute will decide how the telephone counseling will go further. So the first 30 seconds to 1 minute are very crucial. Allow the clients to speak now. Once the clients finishes the initial problem, now the counselor should say, "Sir, may I know your name, please? Can I call you by this name? Is it okay?" Then proceed further. So the introduction phase is very, very essential. Moving to the third phase, it is the middle phase. Both of the identity is known, the counselor's identity is known. At the same time, you know the identity of the client. In the middle phase, you will be asking some of the open-ended question. Many a time you may also require closed-end question. But the dictum should be do not interrupt the client. You need to listen. Because in counseling, the role of the therapist or the counselor is to listen, not to preach. Active listening should be done here. Paraverbals should be used. What is this paraverbal? When the client is saying something, you should say, "Huh? Yes, I can understand. Yes. Can you clarify, please? Can you tell me more about it?" That means you are trying to understand the client from various perspectives and you are giving undivided attention. So that is very essential in active listening. Allow them to express their emotions. Whenever the client becomes silent or else he starts crying, the counselor should be comfortable with the silence. When the client is silent for a moment, you can say this word, "I am here. Please take your time. Please come back if you are finding it very difficult to talk now." Here, very essential is you have to say, "I am here. I am with you." That is very essential. So the client knows the counselor is genuinely interested in solving his issues. So you have to say this, please take your time, I'm with you. You need to ask for clarification. Many a time, the best way to is, can you explain me more about it? How did you feel about this? So those middle phase plays a very crucial role in clarifying and understanding the client. At the same time, you need to empathize with the client. Empathizing means you're not only understanding the client, but at the same time, you're able to feel the client's feelings. If the client is very, very sad, you also feel that. That is empathizing skills. That means the counselor is able to put himself in the client's position. That means fitting into the shoes of the others. That is empathizing skills. How to do these empathizing skills? By paraphrasing, by reflecting, by mirroring. What do you mean by that? When a client says something which is very disturbing, he says, my father shouted at me. At the same time, my mother slapped me. I felt very bad. I could not stand even a single minute. Then the counselor should paraphrase it. He will say, that means your father yelled at you and your mother physically abused you and you felt very sad. That is paraphrasing. You are summarizing and you are using the phrases of the client. By doing this, the client understands that you are actively listening. That is very essential. At the same time, mirroring or reflecting means you also reflect the emotions what the client has felt. The client said, I felt very terrible. You'll be saying, you felt very terrible at the time. That means you are not only empathizing and feeling what the client is feeling, you are reflecting back to him. That means the client feels this counselor is doing his best to understand me. And many a time, if the client is unable to tell about their emotion, please do inquire about their emotion. If there is any life changing event has occurred, if he has lost the job, if he has broken the relationship, or else somebody rejected him, failed in the exams, please do ask what were the thoughts happening in your mind at that time? How did you feel at that time? What was your emotions? So those kind of emotions need to be inquired because by inquiring about emotion, you are ventilating that person. Once his emotion comes out, he will be able to deal with these cognitions very well. Many a time, the clients may be unhappy with certain topics. It may be religious, it may be political issues, it may be a regional issues or a geographical issues. The counselor need to be neutral as much as possible. Do not comment about any religion, about the geography, about the people, about the political parties. Please don't do that. Be neutral as possible. At the same time, do not lecture. Do not make sarcastic comments to the client. At the same time, do not scold the client or make any moral judgment or do not make any statements so that the client is feels very bad about calling or making the telephone counseling as a choice. The counselor need to be as calm as possible. He need to speak slowly, not in the low tone. He should be very clear so that the client is able to understand. At the same time, remember wearing the headset so that you're not on the speaker, nobody else will listen to the client. Reassure the client as much as possible. Avoid typing or holding the call or talking parallelly with somebody else. Don't do that. If you do that, if the client comes to know the counselor is not listening to him, it will put him off. The rapport will be broken. Hence, my dear counselors, please don't do any parallel work. Please give undivided attention. Maximum talk should be done by the client. The job of the counselor is to listen. That is very, very essential. Now, once the middle phase is coming to end, the termination phase starts. Here, once the counselor comes to know that he has spoken about the major of the events, now the counselor need to say this by summarizing, please correct me if I am wrong. What I understood, Mr. So and so, you had been going through this so many days, you have gone through these kind of emotions, and now you have called us to see how we can help you out. May I know anything else I can help you with it? So leave the conversation open. Let the other party ends the conversation, and at the same time provide information. Give referrals. Give some contact details. Give the details of district mental health program in that district, maybe medical college referral, or else even to coming to the counselors or going for counseling. Do not make any diagnosis at this point of time unless you have spoken to the counselor, to the caller for a long time, or many sessions you have done. So please don't make any diagnosis as much as possible. Avoid that. Before hanging up, be sure that you have answered all the caller's questions. At the same time, please do ask, is there anything else that I can assist with you? So that the client may ask you certain more questions or he wants certain clarification which has not been done. And finally, thank them for using Telemanas. Always end with the pleasantry note. Have a nice day. It was nice speaking with you. These kinds of words will cheer up the client. If there is any feedback message, link, or request, please request them to respond to it. And they are at the mercy to respond or not. So that should be how you are going to terminate the call. And finally, you need to document and close the session. Make notes at the end of the closing the call. Any further follow-up calls is required? Any telemedicine is required? Is there any home visit, AMHP team visit, or else ambulance need to be sent there? Those kinds of notes need to be done here. And also if there is any administrative issues with regard to this call need to be noted down. At the same time, you also decide whether you need to escalate this call or a referral to the higher authorities. Many a time, you may also say, I would like to get back to you at the earliest. Sending an ambulance, call back, whether is there, need to be noted. Do you need to inform the senior? Possible legal issues need to be decided at this point of time, and documentation need to be completed. Then only you'll be able to take the next call. Let's look at the telephone counseling and burnout. Let's be very clear. Telephone counseling is not just another job. It is very intimate. That means a person who is calling for telephone counseling, the client is in a very severe distress. He is unable to face any person. Hence, he makes the telephone call, and they will be very distressing call. And this telephone counseling is very taxing and distressing to the counselor and to the client. The counselor also will be getting affected by these counseling sessions. And many a time the counselors feels that they see many movies, but they don't see the ending. That means there is no closure. They will be seeing only one part of the session. They have contacted the client, but the client just moved out. That means there is no closure. Only one session, one of the session. Hence, the counselor may not feel professionally fulfilling. Hence, the self-care of the telecounselor is very, very essential. Burnout is very high. Whenever you feel that you are stressed out, you are unable to cope, there may be compassion fatigue. Talk to your superior. Debriefing session should be arranged within the telecounseling centers. Take time out. De-stressing should be done. Don't carry the job to the home. At the same time, don't bring home problems to the workplace. If you mess up, your job will be messed up. At the same time, your family life will also be messed up. To conclude, my dear friends, telephone counseling is very old. It has both advantage and disadvantage. Remember the 5 phases of telephone counseling. Start the session well. Allow the client to speak. The job of the counselor is to listen, listen and listen. Your job is to listen. Be mindful about the burnout. Please do not hesitate to take help from the seniors, or else from the psychiatrist, or the clinical psychologist, or from the nurse. Once again, I remind you, telephone counseling sessions are very, very distressing and very difficult. Many a time, there will be compassion fatigue in the telecounselors. Please remember this. So don't hesitate to seek help by yourself. Thank you very much for giving your valuable time. Stay safe.